Good morning, welcome back to my channel to another cosy crafting vlog. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mandy and I love to stitch, knit, quilt and crochet. So let's start with my first make, which is this lovely Kitschy Friends TILDA doll. So you can get the pattern free from the TILDA website or as a PDF download from the Fat Quarter shop. So if you search for Kitschy Friends TILDA, that should take you straight away to the free pattern. Okay, so it's really clever design, it really is. So the turban I've made from a scrap of fabric, and then I had this chenille type wool. I think I purchased it to knit a teddy bear but never got round to it, so I've used that for the hair. Now the glasses, you actually use a backstitch those on. Now on the pattern you'll see there's different coloured glasses, and I don't know why, but I just use brown. I don't know why I did that. It was just reminding me the shape was of my aunt's from the 60s, so I just used a brown coloured floss. But my partner said, "Why have you made a doll what looks like yourself?" It did make me smile. But yeah, I just love it. Now it's so clever, this design is, because you make the body, okay, I'll just lift the dress up. So you make the body, so the top here is, oh, this is one body, okay, and then you make the skirt separate and stitch that on. So it looks like a dress, but what's clever about this is you could, if you wanted to, is do a different design for the body. So you could use a different coloured fabric so it looks like a blouse, and then, you know, different fabric for the skirt. You could also use different fabric for the frill. You know, it's quite a versatile make. And then there's this lovely retro flower, and of course this was out of scraps of fabric, so I decided to use the petals that match the turban, and the centre matches her legs. Used a polka dot fabric for the legs. I've always got polka dots and plaids, you know, tartans in my stash because I think they make great blenders. And then the boots are from some scraps left over from a baby quilt I made a couple of years ago. So yeah, that's my TILDA doll. Now I didn't use the TILDA doll skin. I had some of this in my stash. It was just the fabric, and I thought, well, this looks like a skin tone, so I'll use that. So yeah, all this is made from stash, so I'm quite pleased with it, really am. So that's my TILDA doll. So it did make me smile though when I was making her up, because this turban here, it just takes me right back to the 60s, because I can remember in the village here, the ladies used to go to the corner shop in the day, and we still got the corner shop, but they used to have curlers in the hair, and then they'd have it tied up in a chiffon scarf, and invariably that chiffon scarf will be like a neon yellow or green, you know. And I always used to think, what do they do? Do they go home and take the curlers out later when they're having tea so they got the hair done? I don't know, but they always wore curlers in their hair in the day. And I can remember a film, I think it's called Up the Junction. I'll actually put a link into that film if I find it on YouTube, because it's a great watch. It's a black and white one, and it stars Dennis Waterman and Andrea Poster, I think her name was. And in the factory, a lot of the ladies have got the curlers in the hair nets. So yeah, it was quite a common sight in the 60s, that was. So and the famous one, of course, was the great British soap opera that we've got called Coronation Street, and we all know Hilda always wore a turban and these infamous 3 curlers at the front of her hair. But yeah, that's my Tilda doll. Now, I do know Susie, and if you're watching, Susie, hi. She made this, I think it was last year. I'll pop a link into her YouTube channel below. And also, there is another YouTube channel, and I'll pop a link into that, where this person actually does a sew-along of this doll. And it's called Jagang Quilts. So, any information, have a look in the description box. And that reminds me, I do put timestamps in for the different chapters pertaining to different crafts, so that if you're only interested in one craft, you can skip to it. So on the cross stitch front, I've got a big finish, and for those of you who watch me for a while, you'll know what this finish is. It's been a real labour of love. I've worked on this on and off now for the past 18 months. So this is my year at Hawk Run Hollow by Carriage House Samplings. So here it is, in all its glory. So I've stitched this on an 18 count. It's vintage country mocha. The modelling on this is quite subtle, but what I'm going to do is take some footage now of each block. those of you who are new to this channel, I did stitch this incorrectly. It should be that way, 3 across by 4 down, but I accidentally twisted, must have turned my hoop and stitched 4 across by 3 down, but never mind. Now each block I've worked on, I thought, oh, I love working on this block. This is my favourite block. And then, you know, you get to March and you work on the lion and the lamb and you think, no, this is definitely my favourite. Then I get to April and I'm working on the house and I'm loving working on that because of all the brickwork. So, you know, every block I've enjoyed working on. But when I come to this one here, the last one, December, I was dreading that because it's full coverage, this block is. And I thought there's a lot of black. And I don't know if I'm going to enjoy that. But I did. Yeah, I loved working on that. Just look at that little house peeking out. Fabulous. I'm going to give you an honest review of this pattern. The first thing I'll say, it's very good value for its money. Okay, very good value. Because each block is like stitching a mini pattern. It really is. Now, I can't remember the stitch count, so I'll pop that in, you know, down below there. So you're getting quite a lot of stitching for your money. Different patterns there. The one thing I would say is when you get the pattern, there's a page for each block because that's how big it is. But what I would say is that, let's say they use the symbol for a slant. They might use that for the colour, you know, the cinnamon colour, say. But then when you come to stitch the February one, instead of using the slanted symbol for the same, you know, as the same colour, they might use it for blue. So it can be a little bit confusing when you switch to your new block because they use different symbols. Okay, they use the same symbols but for different colours, should I say. So I couldn't understand why they'd done that. They use the same symbol for black but not for all the other colours. So it kept you on your toes a bit, let's put it that way. But like I say, I've enjoyed stitching it and I'm glad it's finished. When I frame my own cross stitch, okay, and I usually purchase frames from charity shops. However, I've looked in my stash and I can't find one big enough to fit this piece. So I'm going to have to take some measurements and send off and get a frame made up. So when I do that, I'll show you the process, what I go through to do, you know, for that. So on a Tuesday, I like to work on cross stitch. I've got 3 projects usually on the go. Now my Hawks Run Hollow's finished, I will be replacing that with a new project. But I've also got 2 other works in progress. So the first one is the Vintage Farmhouse Sampler by Laurie Pengley. I accessed this pattern because I subscribe to the Primitive Quilts and Projects magazine, and I think this was in their summer issue last year. But if you want to stitch this, you can also purchase the pattern on the designer's website, and I think that's called Pansy Patch Quilts. So this is how far I got last time I spoke to you. And this is the most recent progress. So yeah, love stitching this. I did run out of one of the flossies here. It was the green, and I think this one's called Red Rocks if I remember rightly. I did have another one in my stash, but this one was by, I think it's either Gentle Arts or Classic Colour, I can't remember. But I did have to send off and get 2 more flossies because in the UK it was all everywhere I looked. I couldn't get hold of it, so I had to send off to 123 Stitch. I mean, I didn't just buy the 2 flossies from them. I mean, I got another pattern and what have you, but yeah, really pleased now with this progress. So I've only got a little bit more of this farmhouse to do. And then obviously the border and then the truck. So I'll be having another finish soon. Now this is worked on a 28 count cashel linen, which I purchased from Hobbycraft. So do you remember after lockdown we had a bit of a spate where linen was quite hard to get hold of? So yeah, I managed to get this from Hobbycraft, and I must say I love it, and I might actually buy some more. It's not a bad price for the size, not a bad price at all. And there's nothing to stop me doing a bit of tea dyeing on this, is there? You know, on my next piece I buy. Or you could just use a fabric dye and do a bit of modelling that way. So that would be interesting. But it's a lovely fabric to stitch on, I must admit. Love it. Right, so that's that one. Now my second one is this pattern here. It's called the Sunflower Farm, and the designer is Italian, so my pronunciation's going to go out the window now. It's I think it's Cuore e Battacuore, I think. My Italian isn't good, but this is a picture of how it was before and now my recent progress. So I have finished off this little tub of sunflowers and I've started working on the house. And I'm working this, I think this is a 28 count mocha linen, I think. Does it say? It's a DMC, I know that. Oh, it's not telling me. I'm pretty sure it's a 28. But yeah, loving working on this as well. I don't know whether to give this to my daughter or not because she loves sunflowers. That's my Sunflower Farm. So I think we'll carry on with cross stitch whilst we're talking about it. I decided I wanted to work on some small pillows because I want to fill up this dough bowl a bit more. So I chose this one. It was a free pattern and it was from the Primrose Cottage, it is called Primrose Cottage Stitches website. So I subscribe to their newsletter for cross stitching and for quilting, and each month you get a free pattern sent to you. So this was the free pattern that they sent. So I thought, right, I'll stitch this one up. So this was just a little scrap of 32 count Belfast linen I had in my stash. I never throw my scraps. And it's this tomato and strawberry pincushion. Always remember my mum having one of those. Yeah, wish I'd got it really. And then we got the little bees on there. So yeah, love stitching. Now I've backed it with this scrap of fabric I had, and that's also got the tomato and strawberry pincushion on. So yeah, isn't it cute? So yeah, free, not bad. I've also been working on two other small pillows. They're these delightful seed packets, and it was from the Just Cross Stitch magazine June 2021 edition, and I accessed these patterns through my Readly app. Now it's called Seed Pack Towels, and it's designed by Elizabeth Spurlock of Saving Grace's Fine Needle Arts. So they're only, 94 by 62 stitches, so not too bad. And yeah, I couldn't wait to stitch these. Now I'd started this one last time I spoke to you and showed you. I've stitched this on a scrap of I think it's a DMC one, this. I think it might be an even weave. But there were just a couple of scraps I had, and I thought, oh, love this. And I used the call for DMC threads, And look at the shading, just love it. And it's quite vintage looking, isn't it? Now, because the fabric, when you hold it up to the light, you can see through it, I made a little pillow first. So this is just a cream fabric, and then I use this green scrap here to make an envelope fastening. So I just stitched that to my the canvas basically. So I can take this out anytime I like and wash it if it got grubby or anything. But I love this fabric as well. This is from my stash, and I think it's a Christmas one, because it's got like round the white berries, it's gold. It's lovely. Now I did decide to edge this in this chenille. Now I've got lots of Lady Dot creates and those sort of chenilles, but I saw this Sirdar. It's a little ball, it's about 50 gram. I think it retails about £1.49 at the moment. You might get it cheaper than that, but I've doubled it. I sort of twisted it and I stuck it on. I'll never do that again. A lot of people stick the chenille on, and to be honest, it's coming off a little bit, so I'm going to have to rectify that. When I wash it, this glue will dissolve anyway, so then I will stitch it on, but I'll never do that again. Yeah, don't like gluing, don't like the finish, but I think it looks okay. And then this is my tomato one. Loving this. Look at the shading on that. So this is heirloom tomato, and it's ever so funny because my partner grows tomato. He's got a glut growing in the greenhouse at the moment, and when he saw me stitching this, he said, oh, he says, I'm growing some heirloom tomatoes. So I didn't know it was the variety. So anyway, this is my heirloom tomato, but again, this lovely vintage vibe. So again, I've used that envelope closure, and I fastened it with a little tomato button. And again, this is a scrap out of that fabric I've got with the tomato and strawberry pincushion. So yeah. Now I've only used one strand of the red chenille. Again, it's that Sirdar, and I've stitched that on, and it's a far better finish, I think. In the knitting news, I finished this baby cardigan for my youngest granddaughter. It's a hayfield pattern, and it's knit in the flat, and I chose the V-neck version because I think that looks really pretty on baby girls, because you can see the yoke of the dress when they're wearing the cardigan, you know, when it's buttoned up. Now, I'm going to show you this, but I'm a little bit embarrassed. And I'm doubly embarrassed if Ammo's watching, because she's a beautiful knitter and her channel is called Perfect Pastimes, and I'll pop a link into that as well. So go give her a watch, because oh my gosh, her knitting. She made this Salty Days sweater. She made two now. They're absolutely beautiful. So because this is knit in the flat, you know, you've got seams, and this is double knitting. And for a little baby, I don't like seams. I've got used to now knitting seamless cardigans, but I've got a lot of vintage patterns, and I love my vintage patterns. So I decided I would knit the rib on. So this is the finished cardigan, okay, and for some reason I thought I'd be clever and knit the rib on. So I've knit the rib and sized 10 needles. So then when it come to the fronts, I've got a small double pointed number 10 needle with like 7 stitches on. So I was knitting on number 8, and then when I got to the rib section, I then just carried on knitting on number 10, you see. Oh, don't ask why. I really dislike knitting the rib up afterwards and then having to seam it on. I don't like that. So yeah, I thought I was being clever, and I didn't, but when I got to the top, here, then this has to join the back. So yeah, so I seamed it best I could because I didn't want that join, but then I had to join the rib together, and to kitch and stitch that together was quite a headache. So yeah, it is a bit of a, what Linda from Joy of Things would call a peg and a poke. I don't think you can notice too much. I think you have to have that trained eye, you see. But it'll be okay. It's all right. So there we go. That's my cardigan finished. And I shan't be making any more alterations to patterns. I shall just follow them to the T. Eldest daughter asked me to knit her a granny square cardigan, and I chose the sunburst block. Now I went on to a YouTube channel, and I'll pop a link into that. It's called Crochet Me Lovely, where she shows you really good instruction on how to construct this square. But she's also got a website, and there's really good photograph tutorials on how to crochet this square as well. So once you watch the tutorial, you can then go and, you know, as a reminder, just go on her website and look at the blog, and yeah, it's all there for you, you see. Now I've been stitching, crocheting these squares, and you know, I don't know how many to make because I'm sort of making this pattern up as I go along. So I have spoke to it and said, you'll have to come up and I'll have to measure you, because I am now sewing the squares together. So I don't know, this is going to be big enough, or if it's too small, I don't know, for her back. I might have to add some on, but I didn't want to sew too many squares together in case this sufficed, you see. It's looking quite good, isn't it? I love it. I really do. So I'm just randomly placing these squares, okay. And then I've done some for the front. And I'm just stitching 4 together here. So when she finally makes it to my house, which I think she's coming on Friday, I can then, you know, measure her up properly and place these squares against her and work out what we've got to do. I might have to crochet some more squares yet, but I am not joining them with a crochet hook because this is dark wool and I can't see very well, and so I'm finding it easier to just sew them, you know, right sides together and whip stitch them along, you see. I'm finding that easier. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Well, I don't think it looks too bad actually, the joins, so I think she'll be really pleased with this. So I think it'd be lovely to make one just black with red, different red colours for Christmas, or maybe green with red, I don't know. But yeah, the possibilities are endless, aren't they? So we'll see how we go, and I'll keep you up to date with that. There's 2 things to mention to you before I go. I'd like to publicly thank Linda and her channel is Joy of Things. She sent me a beautiful thank you card, and that was for a prize giveaway she won. So thank you, Linda. I'd also like to thank Anne. Merci beaucoup. Anne lives in Belgium, and she's currently knitting the Home for Christmas socks, and she kindly gifted me the pattern via Ravelry. So just look at these socks, aren't they beautiful? And I love the detail round the toes as well. Now, you know I'm a sucker for trucks and the Christmas tree, so yeah, I can't wait to knit these, and I think I'll start these at Christmas. So thank you, Anne. Thank you very much for your kindness. Thank you for joining me for this month's Crafty Roundup, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments on what you're currently working on. If you haven't already, can I ask you to subscribe, give me a like, give me that thumbs up, and comment below. And so hopefully I'll see you next week with another crafty vlog. Until I see you, happy crafting. Bye.